means, what it means.
So the curly girl method, it largely centers around eliminating silicones and
Parabens?
sul
Oh,
no
okay.
sulfates. I'm not actually sure what parabens are.
Me either.
It's with paraffin.
Paraben.
They're like parabenzoic something or
Mm.
parabenzene or something. But anyways,
Anyway, so my shampoo has a sulfonate, which is like this sort of gray area, and my my curl product has siloxane, which is like a cyclical silicone.
Mhm.
But whereas the other stuff I was using has dimethicone in it, and that's a silicone backbone with uh, like an ethyl group or a methyl group on either side. Anyway, details. Um, Apparently that clogs up your pores and keeps the moisture from getting in. But siloxane, I looked at the molecule and it has like 4 hydrogen bonding sites, so I feel like it's reasonably water soluble. And
Mhm.
then the other thing you do is you don't shampoo your hair. For my hair, it recommends like every 7 to 10 days you can shampoo. And then like the rest of the time you just wash it with conditioner. And there are a couple other like I want to say stylistic things. Like a lot of it centers around keeping your hair or putting your head upside down and then dealing with your hair while you're there.
Hmm.
There's the squish to conditioning step, and there's the plop where instead of using a towel on your hair, you use a microfiber towel or an old t-shirt to get all the moisture out. I'll start
Okay.
I'll start posting plopping pictures on the future chat Twitter.
I would love that. Mike, are you writing all this down?
I am not.
Okay.
Mike looks like I do when you guys talk about cell phones.
I can't relate to hair tips for obvious reasons.
Does
I
Maria not have hair?
Well, it's funny actually. As you were talking about your process, I'm like, that sounds exactly like what Maria does. So
Maybe I should get
plopping,
together with
plopping, and
Maria.
everything. Yeah, she could give you some plopping tips.
Yeah.
No, Mike, if we had some forehead or top of head buffing routines, would you be able to relate?
Absolutely.
Because I hear that is a thing.
Actually, since we are talking about hair care, I do have facial hair care concerns or
There's more of a
considerations.
desktop thing, but I'll allow it.
Thank you. And Nick, I think we've chatted about this before, but I'm looking for like a mousse type thing, and I still haven't come across one that looks good. Like I went into a beard shop the other day, and nothing there really stood out to me, and no one was really helping me. Like they're all just kind of behind their counter.
Where was this? This wasn't Kent of Inglewood, was it?
No, this was a beard shop on 130th
Okay.
down
It
here.
sounds
So
terrible because
yeah,
it's not Kent of Inglewood.
no,
So
they just
you
had
can only expect so much.
a couple giant shelves of product and people doing hair. I mean, that's their job, but it would have been nice to. It would have been nice if people came out from behind the counter and asked, "Hey, can I help you with anything? Like, what are you looking for?" And gave a bit of guidance from there. So, I probably will at some point have to try a Kent of Inglewood because I've heard good things, not only just from you, but in general, they seem to be
They're tremendous.
the most recommended hair and beard care product for men, maybe even women. I don't know. He might have the guidance for women looking for hair tips.
Honestly, like for Curly Girl, I don't think they list the ingredients, but the beard shampoo that they sell at Kent of Inglewood, apparently it was an ex-employee that started it, but it's designed to be super gentle, so I could see that being Curly Girl friendly. But anyway, continue.
I just want to mention that I'm not completely out of hair tip conversation. It's just different hair in different places.
Okay. Have you like so when you say mousse, like what are you looking to do? Just hold everything in place?
Allow it to grow longer without it getting crazy and scraggly.
Okay. Have you been using oil?
Not since I ran out.
Okay, that's a good place to start. I recommend the Big Red Oil myself. I believe it's the Noble that I like because it smells of citrus and oranges.
Ooh.
Citrus and oranges.
Yeah, a lot of people would. I mean, a lot of the beard oil that I've come across, it's either from a high end shop, and when I smell it, I'm like, this just smells like rich people, or it'll be all these small craft ones. It's like this one smells like this kind of wood, this one smells like this kind of wood, and this one smells like a different kind of wood. Whereas this one's like you rub it together in your hands and go to put it on. It's like, ooh, citrus and oranges. And oh my.
I don't know if I'm ever going to get an opportunity to discuss this conspiracy theory that I recently came up with. So I'm going to throw it in now because it kind of relates to Nick's comment about things smelling rich. Like rich, like money, not like a rich smell.
Okay.
I have a theory that high-end restaurants, and you'll know the kind that I'm talking about, it's usually the kind that would serve, what's the thing that gives you a raw piece of meat with an egg in it?
Oh,
steak tartare. That's what I'm
tartare.
thinking.
Yeah.
I have a theory that the most expensive restaurants will have food that's intentionally bad but expensive so that rich people will buy it because nobody else would ever buy it or eat it. And I get this. I got this theory because at work we have these committee meetings, and they go out like on the Tuesday of every week for these 3 weeks of competition. They go out to this dinner at a fancy restaurant, and I didn't go this year because I looked at the menu and everything was just like this type of grass or this type of steak, like steak tartare was one of the things. But like every ingredient is this fancy sounding but horrible tasting sounding thing. And so that's my theory, is that nobody else would ever eat or use these things. And so they sell them to rich people for a lot of money to make them think it's fancy, but it's actually terrible and nobody wants it.
So, I mean, you're discussing marketing and pricing signals. Like,
yeah,
when you say like they make it expensive so rich people want it, that can be a part of a marketing strategy. So certain brands, which I might object to, might sell you near identical technology, perhaps in some cases inferior, but they mark up the price to signal that it's a premium product so that some people will buy it.
Yeah.
I'm not naming names here, but that's a thing that a company with loose morals could do.
I don't think it requires loose morals.
I think it does, but here we are.
Disposable incomes.
But no, like you have pricing signals, but also like, I mean, if you have limited supply or it's somehow tricky to get it somewhere or that product somewhere, like that can explain the increase in price.
Maybe it's just the fact that I don't like mushrooms, but every dish that has a fancy kind of mushroom in it, I don't understand because the idea of mushrooms being eaten seems kind of ridiculous to me. And the fancier and bigger a mushroom gets, the less I want to eat it. Truffles are another example of something where I'm just like, why would anyone ever like...
How are you an adult?
What do you mean? I don't want to eat stuff that I think tastes bad.
Normally children grow out of their, oh my God, that's a mushroom and that's gross phase, like pretty early on.
No, I just don't like the taste. Or the texture.
Or coffee.
Right. Because it tastes bad.
But see, Rob, you turned the corner on beer. So I think it's just a matter of time before you turn the corner on everything else you don't like.
I turned the corner on beer, but I didn't turn the corner to now like Budweiser. I still
no
don't
one's
like
asking you to like Budweiser.
That's what I mean. I like
even people who drink Budweiser don't like Budweiser.
Exactly. I also don't like being drunk, so there's that.
Again, no one's asking you to get drunk.
I know. But I will have last weekend I had a single beer and it's called Pink Fuzz, and it's kind of got this fruit, like Nick mentioned, a fruity thing. And I like that.
Probably wasn't beer.
No, it's beer.
It was like a fruity.
It's got like a
aroma?
citrus. Yeah.
Okay, not like fruity flavor.
Oh man, so there are some beers where, especially in the pour, it can help, but I think it makes esters
Yeah, I think so.
in the
That sounds right.
fermentation process, and especially when you oxygenate it by pouring, it'll become fruity, like Fin du Monde by Unibrew. It's it's got these incredible fruity flavors in there without ever having touched fruit. Or, oh my God, Mike, we should go to Last Best and we should go get the Tokyo Drift. It's a Northeastern style IPA and it's got actual grapefruit notes in there without having ever touched a grapefruit. It's just how the yeast interact with the hop, I think. And it's
Yeah.
meant to be, it's meant to use this yeast that would like take up residence in barrels. So they didn't actually mean to carbonate the stuff, but when it got over, it was carbonated because this yeast was really hard to get rid of. And it's also a little bit cloudy. And in the most interesting note I think I have on the Northeastern IPA, the Tokyo Drift, Kaya tried it once because I said, Kaya, this is so unlike any other beer I've ever had. I think you should try this. She tasted it and she said, I don't hate this. I would never order it for myself, but I don't actively object to this flavor. It was like a beer that Kaya doesn't hate.
I must buy all of this
Whoa.
beer.
You can't though. It's like they don't mass market it, which is sad.
Yeah.
I was at a bar the other day and had a IPA that was fairly fruity. I don't believe it was the one you're referring to, but I think it was more of a kind of like raspberry one. And I think they actually had raspberry in it. It wasn't like they weren't relying on just the natural aromas of it, but it was quite fruity. And Maria also in the same vein didn't object to it. She might have even liked it.
Wow.
Not even just not hating it. So one more notch above in that enjoyment scale.
Like actually would get it again.
No, that's a stretch.
Okay. Did like it, but not enough to ever have it again.
Right. Well, not enough to intentionally buy it herself.
Okay.
But it's like if it was the only drink around, she would enjoy drinking it. But
I
there are
feel that
others
way
that
about water.
there are others that she would enjoy more given the choice.
Okay. I hope you realize you're not saying much about this beer.
Well, again, to a non-beer drinker, like a literal non-beer drinker.
I guess
I think we're also getting off course here. Rob, why do you not like mushrooms? What is it about the flavor that you don't like?
Well, so I don't really like the flavor because it just kind of tastes like and to be fair, the taste I really don't like is actually when they're cooked and kind of soft and soggy. But I also don't like dry ones because it just tastes like, I don't know, eating styrofoam. Or at least what I picture, what I imagine
is it a
styrofoam.
texture thing that you don't like?
I definitely don't like the texture.
Have you
And
ever
I
had
also-
like pureed mushroom in something?
Yeah, I don't mind mushroom soup if there's no chunks of mushroom in it.
Okay.
And even if if Campbell's mushroom soup just has tiny little chunks, I don't really care about that. But it's just the taste is just kind of nothing. I don't know. It's kind of like, it's like if tofu tasted like a forest. I wouldn't like it as much. Like I don't mind tofu because it doesn't really taste like anything, but if it had a bad taste, I would like it less. I hope that makes sense because it makes sense to me. I'd never phrased it that way, but
So I'm kind of on the same page as you with mushrooms. Like I don't particularly enjoy the texture or the flavor of like a whole mushroom, but like you, I do like mushroom soup. Like I like the flavor of the mushroom when there's an actual flavor and when I add something. But if it's just like chopped up mushrooms in something, it's like, why are these even here?
yeah.
So
Well,
I know where you're coming from.
they add they actually share a lot of flavor compounds with red meat, and that's why you find those two paired so often.
Are they nutritious? I'm honestly asking, do mushrooms have any nutritious value, or do people just eat them because they're a food that people eat
Why do people eat anything, Rob?
to live? Like I'm asking if they have nutritional value. I don't eat
I'm-
cardboard because I know that I can't process it.
I'm sure I want to say they're at least as healthy as eggplant.
Okay, I also don't like eggplant, so that doesn't really help. And again, it's kind of a texture / flavor thing.
I feel like eggplant's healthier because it has. I heard something about bright colored things tend to have more vitamins in them, like an eggplant being purple.
I've heard that too, but it seems made up.
But it seems believable too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's believable enough to be like, that kind of makes sense, but not believable enough to be like, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I need to only eat eggplants.
There's like nothing in eggplant.
Maybe it's like a deception thing because just the skin is purple.
It's just the skin, yeah.
Yeah.
So mushrooms are a good source of riboflavin and niacin. Also kind of phosphorus, but I'm cutting things off at 5% here.
Now, is this a good source in the biblical sense where like it's a little 5% of your recommended daily value?
Good source in the biblical sense?
Yeah, like, I don't think you're using that phrase properly.
Like the term good, I think is good, great, and excellent, or good and excellent. I don't know if there's a great in between there, but those are actually regulated terms in the food industry, at least in Canada. So when you see on a cereal box like an excellent source of whatever, like it has to be at least a certain percentage
really
to call itself excellent. Yeah.
Huh. I had no idea.
Yeah.
In that case, by the way, eggplant would be a good source of nothing.
Yeah. That's kind of what I figured.
Okay, well, I'll never eat it again. Done. That's an easy decision. Should we start the show?
Probably. This actually leads pretty well into our first piece of follow-up, Rob, if you want to.
It really does. So
into that.
We've talked a lot about Soylent on this show, and as people who have listened before will no doubt know, it's not available in Canada right now. And when this first happened this fall, I thought to myself, wow, the Canada Food Inspection Agency is a bunch of sticklers to the rules for no good reason. And I don't forget, it was kind of conjectured, or like maybe the CEO, Rob Reinhart, mentioned it somewhere, but there was discussion about how the issue that CFIA had was with the fat content in Soylent and calling itself a meal replacement. I forget where I actually saw.
I feel like I came across that exact same thing, and not because of you. Just
okay.
Just I think, yeah.
So it turns out we've had some Canadian person on the Soylent subreddit, and we'll include a link to this thread, who asked, I guess, or it's hard to tell if he works at CFIA. It looks like he does, but
well, no, he did a freedom of information request to the CFIA.
There's an email here going from someone at the CFIA to someone else at the CFIA.
Oh,
with a heads up. And then, so it turns out this person, whoever they are, whether they work for, so it says as a publicly available document released via Freedom of Information Act. But I think they do work for the government, because otherwise why would they mention it's publicly available? So they asked what was going on with the CFIA's involvement with Soylent and the ban. Got 74 pages of information. I'm not going to read any of those pages, but I've looked through them, and the person included a summary here. This was 9 days ago.
Sorry, you're speaking as the person writing. You said I looked through them, but you didn't look through them.
I looked through the 74 pages personally myself.
You didn't? Oh, okay.
I looked through. I didn't read all of 74 pages.
You observed that there were in fact 74 pages?
No. I read their items, all the things that they wrote that I'm going to describe the summary, and it matches up well with the document. So I'm saying I haven't read the entire document, but it does seem to corroborate what this person wrote in the summary.
Okay.
So there were a number of issues, not just the fat thing, although I think the fat thing is mentioned here.
Yeah.
The first one is that there's caffeine is a non-permitted food additive in, I guess, complete meal replacement products, which I did not know, but I also didn't have any of the coffeeist things. Is that?
But coffeeist wasn't mentioned as one of the violators of this. I think in that document it mentioned chai. Okay. But it did mention coffeeist, so I don't know how that
maybe
to be the case, but
because they also the exact phrasing here is only cafe chai contained a second non-permitted food additive.
Right.
So maybe you're allowed one, but if you have two, you're not allowed both.
Maybe, yeah.
But that is not the
caffeine I'd allow, the cocaine I'd allow, but not in the same beverage.
there are 5 items being discussed, and all 5 of the products that they have declare mineral and vitamin contents that do not meet the specifications for meal replacements. For instance, calculations showed 13 vitamins or minerals below the minimum required amount, and 1 mineral was above the maximum allowable amount. And phosphorus, which is required, was not declared in any of the products. And then we get into additional issues. So this is the one we mentioned. Based on online advertising, the energy available derived from the fat content exceeded the allowable 35%. That was the one that we kind of disagreed with and thought the regulations should maybe be changed. The percentage of energy available derived from linoleic acid and N3 linoleic acid must be validated. I guess this is just like we're getting down into the nitty gritty of what's something needing to be nutritionally complete. Because if you rely on it,
sounds like something I could hopefully get people to do at work.
Run a mass spectrometry on Soylent.
We do have an LCMS. Like
Mhm.
theoretically, that is something we could scan for.
So
yes, Mike.
yes,
an MS, an MS on that.
They're
Just
missing.
imagine you like just pouring a bottle of Soylent right into the machine. Be like, let's check this out.
God.
Nick, what are you doing?
Just shut up for a second. I'm trying to get this legal.
There are lots of little things, like they're missing the declaration of those linoleic acids on the bottle because there are labeling requirements. They're missing the expression of certain minerals in milligrams or micrograms. The date printed on the selling unit, which is a case of 12 bottles, is not identified as a required expiration date. The date printed on individual bottles is identified as best by and not an expiration date. And NFT, which I'm not sure what that stands for, but there's some labeling issues where things are not in English and French, which is required by Canadian law.
Zut
So-
alors.
It sounds like they jumped through a lot of hoops to get this available in the US, but then bringing it to Canada, there are certain additional regulations and things that they didn't necessarily comply with. And it's not that everything is necessarily bad. It's just that there's a lot of information missing. And so when I read this, I went from being very upset with the CFIA to being kind of like, okay, they actually kind of just have my back and they're trying to make sure that everything is healthy. I do want it back. Right now, I've been using the Costco brand. Is that Kirkland, I guess? Little nutrition juice boxes. They're also chocolate flavored, and they're fine. I only have one per day because they're not listed as a nutritional replacement. But it does seem to have a similar flavor and similar amount of energy. And I like that they're available in small juice box sized amounts because it means that, like, the more kind of the closer we can get to like having a capsule form of nutrition, the better. Because I like being able to very fine grainedly control the amount of
Rob just
energy
really
I get.
wants to eat like a child, and
do.
the juice box is the first step in that direction.
The juice box is one of the last steps in that direction.
The Tetra Pak, I guess.
They're very space efficient in packing because they're just kind of like cornered off.
Yeah, you can find all sorts of rationales for things you like after establishing that you like them, Rob. I don't need to hear that.
I like them because they're similar to Soylent in taste, and they're actually they're packaged more efficiently, if anything. And you can get them. You don't have to order them online. You can go walk into a store and buy them.
So
That's nice.
Rob, have you compared how this other drink, I presume, is closer to being like Boost than Soylent, but
Yes.
how does it compare to Soylent, like nutritionally?
It's very similar. I didn't go through an ingredient by ingredient comparison, but on the like nutritional information, there's a whole list of like 20 or 25 different micronutrients that are listed, and they all have the 20% recommended daily dose. So it sounds like if Soylent actually wants to get back into Canada, which apparently I keep hearing they did an Ask Me Anything on our Soylent last week. They are working on it, but they're going to have to kind of move in this direction of fulfilling all of our requirements.
Yeah.
Just let the big state in, Rob Reinhardt.
Yep.
Just accept our demands.
The second biggest state in the world.
And accept the market of 35 million people.
1/10 your American market.
That's almost like California. or Florida or something like that.
It does seem like they don't want to go the route of just not calling it a meal replacement.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
that's like their thing is that they are literally food.
That's kind of essential marketing for them.
Yeah. So I kind of understand that part, but it's unfortunate they can't just not label it food, but have like a wink on there, be like, but right?
Yeah.
Like just
Literally a wink emoji.
yeah, just like
it's not food. Sorry,
Um,
listeners to the podcast, I just winked.
Just as a side note, now that I'm bringing up the AMA that they did on Reddit, we also learned in that AMA that the bars are not coming back for the foreseeable future, if at all, probably never. And I got very sad.
It's also worth noting though that you can very easily make a bar-like food out of the powder. There's
Mike,
lots of recipes for that.
We can't get the powder.
Well, you
That's
can't
the
get
issue.
you can't get the bars either, even if they were available. So I'm just saying, in a hypothetical situation where you could get the powder, you'd be able to make a bar out of it.
This is true. And there is chocolate powder now, which when it comes back, I would be interested to at least try.
Yeah. So I have some Soylent follow-up too, because like you both, or Rob more recently, I was a Soylent customer and was shafted by the whole not being able to be sold in Canada anymore thing. And I started looking at alternatives. So there are a couple other full nutritional complete meal replacement powders and drinks out there in the market. One of those being Schmilk, which is made by a company called Super Body Fuel.
The name is very off-putting. I just need to say that. That in itself makes me not want to get it, but go on.
To people who have connotations of the movie or book with Soylent.
Two different things.
It's I'm sure, they both have their faults. Anyway, I looked at Schmilk and they have a sample pack available. So I put an order in for that and it got lost in the shipment. So then I got a refund and they sent out a new one free of charge.
Wow.
As kind of like a sorry for your troubles. We'll send out a new one. And that one also got lost in shipment. So, I mean, at least now I'm not out money. But
I don't understand.
Well, so I guess the whole issue came from they don't have a shipping post out of Canada. So they're shipping out of California via USPS. So then it has to change hands to Canada Post. And that's where it always gets lost.
God.
Yeah. So like
United
if they just
States Postal Service to Canada Post, like that's just
like if they just use
that's
UPS,
the nightmare scenario right there.
If they just use UPS right off the hop or some other like international courier, then it'd be fine because it stays at the same company. But this whole handing off between USPS and Canada Post, like I have no idea where these things are. Like there's no reason for it to not get to me. But
okay, can I just this is blowing my mind now. We're going off on a tangent, but so there are potentially millions of packages, a lot of them of Schmilk, just floating around between the border of US and Canada, like with labels on them, with Canadian addresses.
Yeah.
You'll be walking down those sections where it's just like a corridor through the forest where they established the border is, and there's just packages of Schmilk laying around. Which is good if you're in a survival scenario. But
it says Canada.
Yeah.
Where's that? I don't know where it is. But trees are in Canada, right?
How often does this happen? How often does stuff get lost in the mail and just never get found?
I don't know.
Really get to you in like 18 months. It'll show up at your door and you're like, what? This is bad now. I can't have it.
So I want to jump in briefly and say, like, I'm not 100% sure on this, but it's my understanding that, like a lot of, I think it's Slim Fast or something like that. It's heavily high fructose corn syrup. Or like it gets a lot of its caloric load from sugar.
Yep.
And I'm extremely disappointed that the CFIA is demonstrably fine with that.
Yeah.
But objects to a large percentage of nutrition coming from fat, which like, let's just like write a love letter to the 7 countries study right here.
I'm just going to go actually
right
look
now
at what it says.
Okay. I also wanted to say, oh, damn it. Oh yeah. Like I'm surprised that Soylent cannot get away with writing a best before date rather than an expiry date, but I'm pretty sure I've seen a lot of best before dates on milk. that, like, I'm surprised a dairy can get away with it, but
Well, I think the best buy is, yeah, I don't know how that works because I actually looked up Soylent expiry because it says best buy, it doesn't say best before. So then it's like, well, or like an expiry date, right? So I'm like, does Soylent expire? And then the answer I got was that it doesn't actually expire. It just loses its potency for like a nutritional standpoint.
that would make sense.
But it doesn't expire in the sense of like going bad. Once you mix it, then they say, you know, it's good for 3, 5, 7, however many days. I can't remember. I think it was like 3 to 5 days. I think they said it was good for. But it's more like if it smells bad, don't drink it. That was their guidance.
In Canada, anyway, there are expiry requirements, and so a lot of like canned food that should be indefinite is labeled as like a year or something like that, because that's the maximum you can put for expiry. And they're like, well, it doesn't expire. What do you want me to say? And CFI is like, we want you to say a date. It's like, but it doesn't expire. But you need to put a date. It's like, but there is no date that it expires. And they're like, I'm sorry, what part of this don't you understand? You need to put a date. It can be as late as 1 year. They're like, fine, 1 year then. It's like, good. Was that so hard? But yeah, like, yeah. You talk now, Mike.
So on your note about Slim Fast and other type nutritional supplements, the whole point being that they don't call themselves a meal replacement. Like, it's the same argument that people had about like, oh, well, why can they sell bags of chips? Bags of chips don't have anything in them, but they can sell them. It's like, well, they're not calling themselves a meal replacement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Right. So the problem is stuff like Slim Fast and Boost, like people treat those as meal replacements. So even if they don't call themselves meal replacements, people still treat them. Not to say people don't eat bags of chips for lunch, because people do. But I think the unspoken implication of stuff like Boost and Slim Fast is that they're good enough to be a meal replacement, which they may be, but under the regulations and guidelines of the CFIA, like, they're not. And Soylent falls under that same category, that based on what's in it, like, they can't call themselves a meal replacement under the current standards.
I don't like it, but I think that is a good explanation.
So, Rob, you're back.
I am back.
What's your update?
So I grabbed my one that I had this morning out of the garbage. Yes, my juice box.
Put the straw in there like a big boy. We're very proud of you, Rob.
There is specific.
Rob, make sure you pull the wings out so you can like hold it without squeezing all the liquid out. Life pro tip from having a 2-year-old drink juice boxes.
There is specific under the polyunsaturated fats section. There is the linoleic acid and N3 linoleic acid content is specified specifically.
Specifically specified?
After water, the first 2 ingredients are different types of sugar, but I don't know do they have to say that it's high fructose corn syrup if it isn't? Or do they have to write that?
I mean, high fructose corn syrup is like, it's sugar. It's just a specific kind of sugar. So I don't know if you have to say high fructose corn syrup.
I think you'd say like glucose fructose, maybe?
Yes, I think that's right.
Because they say like there's water, then sugar, then maltodextrin. And then it gets into the proteins and oils. And
maltodextrin is what Soylent went heavy on, wasn't it?
Yep. Because it has a low glycemic index.
Right.
Yeah. No, I feel that if it's high fructose, you'd have to actually say some sort of fructose type ingredient.
Yep. But this also has sucralose like Soylent does, so I'm just as annoyed by that.
So what's the consistency like? Like, is it more close to milk or to Soylent? Like, thickness wise?
I'm trying, honestly. I discovered in my fridge that I have 1 Soylent cocoa left.
Oh.
I don't know if I mentioned that. But yeah, I discovered that about a week ago in the back of my fridge, and it's still good, so it's fine. But I don't know, like, it's like ceremonial. I don't know when I'm supposed to have it because I don't ever want to be out.
Have it when your child is born.
I thought about it. I was like, take it to the
that's
hospital.
a good idea.
Child's born, you're like, crack. It's like, I don't smoke cigars or eat anything exciting.
That would be exciting if I ate it.
Rob, I think now you need to have that bottle when your child is
agree.
born.
Like, bring it to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking more just
put
when you
that
bring
in the bag you have ready for Julia.
Yeah. She'll open it, be like, what is this?
I can only eat ice cubes. Why would you do this to me?
Rob's like Snapchatting us with the Soylent bottle and the baby's being born. It's like, Robert, get over here.
Does she call you Robert when she's angry with you?
No.
Okay. Kaya
Definitely
always
not.
calls me Nicholas, and it's when she calls me Nick that I know she's really upset with me.
Because it's faster. It's just easier.
She puts a lot of anger into Nick.
Oh, that's a good idea, though. I did consider it, but I didn't. I don't know. I don't know when you usually do the celebration thing. I would assume the celebration happens when you're in the hospital, not when you get home.
The hospital's
it's-
more like a relief and like a cathartic experience
Okay.
that I found. Like the celebration excitement is when you get home. And like, I mean, like it's exciting and you're celebrating in the hospital too, but
Yeah.
it's when you get home, it's like, oh crap, like we have a baby here now. I mean,
You-
oh crap in a good way.
Okay.
Oh man, I gotta put these chemicals away.
Now, Mike, if I'm going off on this tangent, I'm just going to continue. If you needed something when you get to the hospital and you realize there's something at home that you need, did you have time, or would you have had time to go home and get it? Is that a thing?
I wouldn't have wanted to. So
Okay.
okay, so this is going way off on a tangent.
Just get
now.
Amazon
but-
Prime to
so-
deliver to the hospital.
As a footnote before you start, I can see the hospital out my window right now. Like, it's very close. I
Okay.
can get
Right.
there in 2 minutes.
Right. I think with the way that pregnancies usually go, where they wait for a certain level of dilation, then I think that's pretty predictable. Where it's like, okay, you're this far along, it should be another couple hours or whatever.
Mhm.
So you probably would have 10 minutes to come back and get something
Okay.
if you needed to. Just don't wait till it's like
Right.
9 centimeters dilated.
I go back to the room and it's like, where is she?
Yeah. No, exactly.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I as a programming note, we can move on, but I will not be here very, very, very likely the next at least one, potentially 2 episodes, probably 2 episodes, because I'm going to be on parental leave from the show. But I think I have my understanding is it will continue.
Friends, family, religion, Rob. I just get the feeling that you don't want Unwind Media to be successful.
No, I do. That's why I've decided.
Despite the marriage, despite the child,
I've opted
despite
to
the
let it
increasing
continue.
size of your family.
It can continue without me. That's its real legacy, is that I can leave and come back and it will still be here.
Are you just gonna drop and convert to Catholicism one of these days? We're not going to be able to get you on Sundays because you have to go to mass.
I mean, I will probably have to work around that in theory at some point. Like, my parents took me to church for 2 years until it got too busy, and then we never did anymore.
So I threw that last one in as a joke.
I don't think, like I said, I would petition to go at a time that would not just be disruptive. Like, I think the actual Catholic mass isn't even on Sunday morning, so I think it'd be fine. But
most services are like 10:30, 11 on Sundays, but
not anymore.
Rob,
okay.
it's
Yes.
a good thing that convenience and non-interference is the pillars of religious dedication. So
Yeah.
I never said I was going to be dedicated.
so let's
now that we
let's-
know that Future Chat is going to die, Mike, what else do we have on the
Okay,
docket?
I'm a perfectly capable stand-in for Rob's regular duties. So
Whoa. You're going to
Okay.
need my OneNote.
So last month, whenever it was, we talked about cell phone plans, and we had some follow-up from one of our listeners, Mia, and she's from Europe, I guess, in France, and she said that she pays 10 euros for 5 gigabytes and unlimited SMS and calls, which is very disheartening to me.
Yes.
That's very cheap.
Whenever I see stuff like that, like I think most recently it was a guy that came over from Bulgaria and he was talking to us about cell phone plans. He was like, in Bulgaria, I pay like, it's similar amounts. It's like nothing for everything. And I'm like, you just pause for a second because your mind can't comprehend how cheap that is.
Yep.
And it's just like, how in an otherwise pretty well functioning country do we just have an oligopoly in charge of this shit?
I want to point out that it's not nearly as good as it sounds, because if you convert those euros to Canadian dollars, it's about 1576. So really, who's getting screwed? That's all. I rest my case.
5 gigs?
Wait, what are you saying?
I'm sorry. Did the sarcasm not come across?
No, it didn't come across.
So the explanation or the justification or comprehension I have for this, if I'm trying to justify what we pay versus what Europe pays,
Advocate for the devil, Mike.
is,
Advocate for
I'm not
Mini
advocating
Telecom.
for anyone. I'm just putting out something to consider. Is population density.
That's what they always say.
I mean, it may or may not be reasonable to use it as an excuse, because I have no idea how much these things cost the actual cell providers. But I do expect it to be more expensive than Europe, just because you are trying to accommodate a very widely spread out population, but also not leave out the rural customers. Rob, you being a rural Pokemon player, I'm sure you appreciate having cell service, right? I mean, it would suck if you're just kind of left out in the dust. So they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, trying to keep prices, I won't even say reasonable, just not absurd.
Yep.
And also trying to have extensive coverage.
I should point out, we've been talking on our internal Slack about part about the PC leadership race in Ontario, but also about the Liberal convention that's happening in Halifax this summer. And Nick and I voted in that kind of policy questionnaire they sent out about what your priorities would be. And one of the priorities that the Liberal government is at least looking at is a national broadband cellular internet kind of coverage plan. And that, like, with a focus on northern, rural, and whatever the third thing would be. There's a third term, but I forget what it is. But the idea of blanketing the entire country, whether or not you're in a city, with good cell service, because right now it's okay in kind of populated areas and the spaces between the populated areas, but I don't know if you ever looked at a cellular coverage map of Saskatchewan, for instance. It's like a crisscrossing network of lines with a bunch of big gaps in the middle.
Yeah.
It's not ideal for being able to communicate anywhere. So I don't know if that would make our cell service more expensive or less, but the government will be looking to at least subsidize the construction of some of these towers in rural areas.
Have you guys ever been to Stevenson House? It's kind of on the way to Edmonton from Calgary, but you have to go a fair ways out.
No.
Oh, okay. We went one day. It's like it's a homestead kind of thing. You can tell because, like, there's nothing, and then a bunch of trees around a house, and that's how a homestead works. I'm given to understand.
Yes.
But it was interesting when we went, because we walked in and they said, "Hey, so suggested donation is this much," and we went, "Cash? Do you not have?" And it's just, no. There's no power here. There's no power. There's no internet. There's nothing that we would need to process a non-cash transaction. And, like, my mind just shut down for a minute. It's like, but we're, oh my God, how do you do anything?
Yeah, it does seem a little ridiculous that when you start to get to that point of thinking where things are very different here.
I appreciate why they have it that way because it preserves the spirit of the original house, and also they go when you say I have no cash, I haven't carried it in approximately 5 years, and they're like, that's okay, nobody ever has cash. We're funded. We're funded by the province. It's fine. And then I leave, and I'm like, I should really like. Can I buy an annual pass to these things so that it like justifies it?
Yeah. Huh. Weird. Yeah, I find I have a hard time because like wireless internet is wireless. I find a hard time with the justification that it would ruin this homestead to have a router in a corner somewhere.
They
like
don't.
you would.
They don't have power either.
No,
Like,
I know, but I mean, getting like put up some solar panels outside, it wouldn't ruin anything. It would just enable you to have the modern conveniences of people being able to pay for
Actually,
going to your homestead.
what I could accept is like if you built some sort of rocket mass heater or even a rocket stove and attach that to a Stirling engine. I feel like that would be period appropriate.
Like steampunk. It's still an anachronism, but at least it's less of an anachronism.
That's right. You just need to harvest the lumber sustainably.
Pretend Nikola Tesla lived there for 20 years or so back in the early 19th 18th century. I forget what centuries are anymore. 20th century. The time when electricity existed, but we didn't have internet or anything. That he could have modernized this house and brought it to the point of being able to sustain Wi-Fi.
It's true. He did experiment with wireless power transmission.
He did. Unsuccessfully, but
do you guys remember those credit card sliders? It goes like chunk, and then it carbon copies your info.
I do remember those.
Those don't require power. There's no excuse for them to not accept other forms of payment.
Unless the credit card companies don't accept that anymore.
I had that happen. I had someone take my credit card that way before.
I would like in the last 10 years?
Within the last year.
Oh my god, where were you?
I don't remember. I think it was like a mobile. No, it was like a mobile contractor or something that came to do some sort of.
I was in the tundra, Nick.
No, it was someone mobile, so they needed. I mean, they have Square payments now, so I don't know why they couldn't have just used something like that. But yeah, they took my credit card that way.
I'm pretty sure that's illegal. Like you can require payment through a more secure method because they're literally just stealing your credit card information. Well, they're making a copy of your card.
Yeah, I have no illusions about credit card security. So like every time I use my card, I don't accept this like, wow, this is a perfectly secure transaction.
Yeah.
I accept that there's a chance that it's not even a conscious thought, but it's like, I don't expect perfect security. So if something happens, I know the credit card company has whatever insurance and whatever for that. Right. So, yeah. I mean, we've talked about before, like it's the same thing with my phone. Like I set up Android Pay on it because it has the NFC Google Pay that I can use with it. And like,
perfect security is not using your credit card.
Well, so. Exactly. No, that's exactly it. It's like, if you're going to use it, like you can't expect it to be perfectly secure, otherwise you'd never use it anywhere.
It's acceptable risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nick, I want to hear the story that is associated with you, whether or not you put it in here. I know it has an all caps headline, so that's how I know it came from you.
That sounds like me. For listeners, we have show notes, and I like to put clickbaity titles in the show notes.
They're not even clickbaity. Well, the second one,
quantum computing.
The second one kind of is. I was intrigued. The second
one kind of is.
Yeah, the first one's just, excitement.
Yep.
Did I write for the second one? Oh, that's right. Yes. Honestly,
I want to hear the quantum computing. Actually, no. Oh, we never did. Wait, hold on. Let me back up. Did we talk about the encryption with lava lamps?
Yeah, we talked about encryption with lava
lamps. Did we?
Lamps.
Oh, yeah, we did. We did.
Okay,
that's true.
I thought the quantum computing was that one. I was I was excited to talk about that.
You know what? That's actually a good segue because like this one, when I was really excited about CRISPR, like it's difficult to articulate how game changing that could be. Like CRISPR offers the technology where like maybe by the time that I have a child, if that child is born with some like genetic disease, you could cure it with CRISPR technology right there. I see bemusement on Mike's face. But this one I have even more trouble trying to articulate because Google has unveiled a 72 qubit quantum computer with low error rates. And I'm not sure what exactly quantifies low error rates, but back in university when I took single molecule magnets, that course, Rob, I seem to recall you were there at the beginning and then you weren't anymore.
That was a 2-part grad course.
Right.
If you were a grad student, you could take the first half or the second half, or both as separate as 2 different credits. And I only took the first half, and then I failed that, and I did not take the second half. To be clear, failure was anything below a B.
I could definitely see failing that course.
Yeah, I did not like it. It was not for me, and I did not get an F, but I did fail.
Is that because it should have been easy enough to get a B? Like that was the curve?
No.
Oh, just the standards were high.
Well,
like
it's
Mike,
course.
Mike, I don't get it myself, but like with math that I'm perfectly capable of doing, I know that some people look at those formulae, and they see what I'm doing with it. They see how I'm manipulating it, and their brain just like shuts off. It's like it's just a complete wall between them and comprehension.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I got with this class. Like all of a sudden,
which part? You crossed that barrier, or you never crossed that barrier?
I managed to understand just enough to get out of that class with the credit.
Right.
And I haven't thought about it. The only time I thought about it since, really, in a comprehension way, was when the prof was at my honors thesis defense. And he asked me a question about it.
See,
sorry.
I feel the exact same. So, Mike, to put that in context, because there were grads and undergrads taking the course at the same time, you could technically have a third-year student taking this class, and they need to be judged according to the same standards as potentially like a 4th or 5th-year grad student. And so they gave the same grades, but there's a higher standard if you were a grad student.
What? So they curved the class differently?
Not curved, but they graded them the same, but there was a higher standard of failure. Like you had to get at least a B if you're a grad student, but if you're not a grad student, you could get C and D and it'd be fine. Like you'd still pass.
Oh, because you wouldn't have taken other prerequisites?
No, you would have taken other prerequisites.
So that's the whole point of prereqs.
It's harder to pass if you're a grad student because there's a higher standard of
It's a higher cutoff for pass fail.
This seems arbitrary though. If they have the same prereqs for grads and undergrads.
But you're expected to, in general, know more, and you're expected to already have experience in that field, which I did to an extent, but not.
I mean, welcome to grad school, Mike. It's awful.
The other thing. So, Nick, you mentioned the
other thing is you take one course at a time in grad school usually, and so they just expect that course is your whole life. Like the grad course that I took, when they gave an assignment, that was like a week for me. That was a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday assignment. And then we'd all get together at the end and compare notes, and I'd realize that I'd done nothing.
To your point, Nick, about not thinking about single molecule magnets or really molecular magnetism at all until you saw Murley at your thesis defense. I don't think about it at all, and then suddenly I see his name pop up on some NSERC application, and I'm brought rushing back to that class.
Oh man, can you personally give him hell for me, please?
No.
Okay, well,
he's like, it's amazing because, like you said, you hit that wall, and that's his chosen field. Like that's where he does his research. Like,
so I mean,
I have to have respect for him.
All this to say, like single molecule magnets, the reason that you're interested in them at all in the slightest is that they have a quantum spin component to them overall,
Mhm.
and they can be spin up, spin down, and they can have a whole variety, like a three-dimensional matrix of options in between those. And the reason they make them so big and so complicated from the perspective of like a molecule is to keep them from flipping on their own.
Mhm.
And when I was taking that class and I learned about quantum computing and what they were trying to do, I didn't think it was possible because there's just too many ways for it to go wrong. And I didn't think it would ever be a reliable option for computing. But once we hit this level, like quantum computing, if we continue the trend of the low error rates that Google has, and we make these giant complicated molecules that keep it from flipping on its own, but at the same time, instead of dealing with a computing 1 or a 0, you can deal with a three-dimensional matrix all within this one quantum bit. That makes cracking the wall of lava lamps a trivial endeavor. Like, this is the kind of technology that it's like the cold fusion of the computing world.
Yeah.
Once you unlock quantum computing, like all the simulations that you would never do because it's just not worth the computing time, that's just like, oh yeah, we can do that. We can do that in under a year of computing time or
And we
something
just
like
did it.
that.
Yeah.
Like, all the encryption we've had to this point is just a trivial endeavor for quantum computers to solve. It's incredible. And I still almost can't believe that this kind of progress has been possible.
Yep.
And I, for one, welcome our new Google robot overlords.
So on that note, is this the kind of thing where people in 100, 200, 1,000 years will say, you know, they thought they could, but they didn't realize or stop to think if they should? And again, similar to like Stephen Hawking saying how like AI is getting to the point where it's becoming like a threat to ourselves. Is like, because Nick, you're talking about, this trivializes a lot of current challenges with encryption and computing and that kind of thing. Like, when it gets into the wrong hands, like that could be game over for a lot of that kind of stuff.
Well, luckily, you need to have the resources of someone like Google or Apple in order to crack
Or
these
the
things.
Saudi kingdom.
Honestly, like, they have the financial resources, but I don't know that they have the intellectual resources at their disposal to crack something like this.
Like the engineers and programmers and all that. Yeah.
It's not even about, they don't have to be the ones to crack it though. I'm saying once it becomes available, like once it becomes cracked,
well,
then it's just, I'm not expecting quantum computers to be like installed into Dell PCs anytime soon, but like that kind of thing, there'll be a black market for that kind of computing for sure.
Also, the whole like Intel inside stickers. Once we have quantum computers, like Intel maybe inside, we're not actually sure. No, like encryption. Sorry, when I say cracking encryption will be trivial, cracking today's standards of gold standards of encryption,
no, of course,
trivial. You would hope that encryption would keep pace.
Well, there'd be quantum encryption then.
Encryption. Like, and there are, Mike, this is actually really cool. I don't know if you know about this, but we actually talked about quantum encryption in some of our classes. You can actually like send information back and forth, but via a wave function. And if it gets to you pre-collapsed, you know that it's been intercepted somewhere. Rob? That time of the show again. Are you okay?
I think I've just been discovered is what happened.
Oh my God. By Teddy?
Yeah.
Does Theodore not know that you exist normally?
The call is coming from inside the house.
Does Theodore have object permanence?
Yes.
Okay. It's good to know.
He does.
All right.
or a very, very good sense of smell. We can't really be sure yet. Okay. Is it ever really gone if you can still smell it, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. You have to have a smell-proof box in order to
Yeah.
fool Teddy. Not just okay. I'm sorry, where were we?
Quantum encryption?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
did we mention the story yet? I think you said something about 72 qubits. Is that, I read the article quickly and it was
The
made to-
last time I remember hearing something about this, it was like 8 qubits, and that was phenomenal. And that was a few years ago.
So yeah, and they said something about every qubit is 10 times faster or harder. I can't remember what they said.
I think all of the above.
It's harder, it's better, it's faster, it's stronger.
Right. So this is like 64 orders of magnitude faster than they could do before.
Right. But it's also, you also have to consider that each time you add one, it's like an extra order of magnitude more difficult to keep them entangled. So it's a feat in itself that they were able to physically do this.
Yeah.
Right. And Nick, you mentioned about the level of error. I think they said 1%.
Yeah. Between 0.5 and 1 or something like that was what they're aspiring to.
Wait, it's what?
1% error or data loss or corruption or whatever. Because you said about the amount of error involved in the quantum computation, right? And you say you weren't sure how much error is minimal or low error.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's I think this one's 1%. That's what the article said. And I think they're still trying to get.
Oh my God, you're right. It's 1%. How do they even do that?
Well, okay, so where I was going with this.
Oh my God. Can you even get 1% error on like our current transistors?
Okay, so
holy shit.
Rob, you might be able to answer this. The LHC, when they consider a discovery as valid, I guess.
Now you're making me look up 6 sigma.
6 sigma.
Is it 6 sigma?
It's 6 sigma.
Okay, because that's way below 1%.
Well, yeah, but that's also a data acquisition thing.
Yeah.
But this is effectively data acquisition too. Like you're generating the computations via.
These are error rates, though. It's different. It's a similar principle, but it's different.
Either way, 1% still seems way too high when you're dealing with large computations.
With computing, you have to have a certain amount of redundancy.
Yeah.
Like just theoretically speaking, you have to have enough redundancy that the errors that will happen in a process can be accounted for.
Right.
Like Rob, you're more the experts on computation than I am, but that's my understanding. Like transistors have a certain amount of not transistors. CPUs have a certain amount of redundancy built in, as do hard drives, things like that.
And well, RAM especially, I think, is one of the things where.
Right. Yes, I think that's it.
I want to check. Yeah.
And that's an area you have to account it for. But when you're talking about 6 sigma from the LHC or something like that, consider. When's the last time you looked at a spectrum, Mike?
I looked at a sound spectrum last week.
Okay, so that's a good example. So
I'm not sure it is, but okay.
You saw I'm sure you saw what some people call grass at the bottom of the spectrum. But the more acquisitions you take, the grass at the bottom is random. So
like noise?
Yeah, the noise is random.
Yeah.
So as you take more and more acquisitions, the randomness will cancel itself out. It will average out to a 0-ish baseline. Sure. But then the signal in the noise becomes more apparent because the noise is decreased, right?
Like a signal to noise ratio.
That's correct. And that's the 6 sigma we're talking about with the LHC. You just have to run it longer to get more acquisitions. I'm sorry if I mansplained that to you.
No, you Nick-splained it.
Did I Nick-splain it? I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate the connecting the signal to noise ratio with the error. That part makes sense. Like you're trying to get the signal to noise ratio to a certain level for it to be confident that it's a valid result. Like, and you're talking about the errors in data. Like, just from what I've heard experts talk on it, like processors have processes in place to like fill in the gaps of the missing data. Like they're able to either just blow past it and not have it affect what it's doing, or it'll be able to predict or estimate what it was supposed to be up to a certain level. So like, like you're saying, like you expect there to be a certain level of data loss, but it can handle that within the way it's designed.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, that's my understanding of it anyway. Which is kind of crazy to think that like these computers we're using like literally right now are all just electrical switches and electrons flying inside circuit boards.
Yeah, and
it's
like
kind of weird.
And we have been hitting kind of theoretical limits for a while where it's like, these can only get so small until it's not possible to make them a transistor anymore.
And like the transistor itself is a single molecule kind of limits.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have, because the transistors we have right now, if I'm correct, they use semiconductors. So you have to have at least a certain number of atoms present in order to have that, semiconductor
band gaps.
Yeah. I can't believe that their error is 1%. That's so low.
Yeah.
This is brain-breaking incredible. And I submitted the article.
I think stuff like this will hopefully encourage other companies. I'm sure there's companies already working on this, but it's similar to like the SpaceX improvements, right? Like it advances the field and motivates others to kind of like keep up and like push harder, hopefully. And ideally it's for the benefit of everyone that these companies are trying to be first to market or first to break into whatever kind of barrier is in the way of further advancement, I guess.
Yeah. So we don't have a ton of time left. I know there's a lot of things that people want to talk about, but I would like to submit one additional story that's not in here. I kind of want to hear about your X-rayed experiences. Either of you not want to talk about those and would rather talk about something else for the last little bit, or is that okay?
I am really curious to hear about Mike's X-rayed experience.
This is the last 10 minutes or so of my podcasting for the next 2 months. So I want to hear about this.
For listeners to contextualize this, Rob is by far the most successful Pokemon Go trainer in terms of total XP.
Between the three of us, that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not in the world.
Based on his magical bus rides, it seems like, and lunchtime X-raids or lunchtime legendary raids. But Mike received 2 X-raid passes and I received 1.
Mike got 2 within 1 day of each other.
Yeah.
After a drought of like 8 months.
It only seemed appropriate that it would come in literal waves.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my first EX raid was on Friday, and that was a downtown raid, 1 o'clock. So it was actually quite convenient for me. Just took a bit of a delayed lunch and was able to make it down there. I was very excited for it. I sent some snaps, kind of documenting my.
That was your first. We'll get to it, but I think that was your problem.
Maybe it was, but that is bordering on hindsight confirmation bias a little bit, because it could have turned out fine. And
but your hands were cold. Is the foreshadowing?
I was walking through the +15 while I was snapping, but
there was a couple outside. You were out there.
Sure. We'll get to there. So I'm documenting my experience. I'm all excited. I get to the location, with about 10 or 15 minutes to spare. And long story short, obviously we defeated Mewtwo. Got to the catching. Obviously, like
he's shockingly soft.
Very.
Based on the trailer with Mewtwo at Times Square, and there were like hundreds of people. I actually kept 170 max revive or max potions and 130 max revives just for Mewtwo, because I was like, what if this happens? What if I need like 1 billion of these and it's a huge thing? And then I got there and it's like, oh, I could probably I could 4-man this, I think.
Yeah. So got to the catching time. I only got 8 balls. Does that sound right? Yeah.
Which seems very, very low.
So I was in a group
How many
of
were in your party?
12.
Okay.
So there's a possibility to get 2 balls, and I was hopeful for 2, but I ended up only getting 1. And sorry, was there 12 or is there 8?
What was
No.
your lineup?
Sorry, it was a group of 8. So I actually
you-
should have had a pretty good chance to get 2 balls, but I only got 1.
Did you do Tyranitar, Gengar, Scizor, or Tyranitar, Scizor?
So I knew this wasn't Focus Blast because they didn't recommend any flying types, and it recommended
Right.
my Tyranitars. So I did put my good Gengar up front, and then a couple Tyranitars, Houndoom, and I want to say another Gengar. I know it was like 2 Gengars, 3 Tyranitars, and a Houndoom. We'll go with that. And it unfortunately had confusion, so my Gengars melted.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like, I didn't have to jump back in to revive, so that was fine. But either way, I only got 1 ball instead of 2 for personal damage. And there's only 2 instinct in my group, so that contributed to the single team contribution ball. So the 6 + 1 + 1 gives me 8. Went to catch it, and the first ball, my finger touched the screen, and it fumbled and bobbled to the ground. And I'm like, nice. That was good. So second ball was fine. Threw it. Third ball, again, fingers were cold, and it hit the pin app. And then when I went down to go change it, it just released a pin app to the Mewtwo. And I was like, oh, okay, so I guess I'm pin apping this one. Yeah, didn't catch it that ball. Third ball, threw it, and it fell short. I don't know if I just wasn't touching the screen enough or it's because it was cold. Again, either way, just was not a good throw. And then the other 5 balls went off fine. But end of the day, it was weather boosted too, so the catch rate was lower.
Right.
So that didn't help either. So anyway, first Mewtwo ran away from me. Thankfully, I had the second pass, so that softened the crushing blow of
Yeah, no kidding.
the first one running away. And so I did my second one yesterday, and that one was right by my house. And that's my like home gym. Like that's my highest goal, highest points, most active gym. So that's the gym that I wanted for sure to like get an EX rate to. And so I was very happy to get that. And I do kind of feel better for getting my first Mewtwo from my home gym. Like that's kind of what I want. I didn't want to go. Yeah, like I didn't want to have to go out of my way to some random like whatever gym that was a guaranteed raid pass and get my Mewtwo that way. Like I wanted it to be like a bit more meaningful that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I ended up catching that one no problem. Got 10 balls that time. Wasn't boosted, so the higher catch rate, and caught it on like my 3rd or 4th ball. So maxed that thing out right away. And now it's, well, actually, I put it up to 3,800. I did actually max it out this morning.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
So now it's a nice palindromic number. It's 3883. So
nice.
It's still a happy number. And Nick, I also TM'd it to Psycho Cut Shadow Ball. Just because.
Just because you have all the TMs?
How many TMs did you need for that?
Actually, only 3. So it went Psycho Cut to Focus Blast to Psychic. Or sorry, Psychic to Focus Blast to Psychic to Shadow Ball.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have like over 30 charged TMs, so I was okay using them.
Yeah. I have so many projects that I keep using charged TMs on.
Yeah.
But I'm also now soloing tier 3s, so that's okay.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I'm very happy about. I've been wanting you to try that forever. And you didn't believe in yourself, Nick.
Well, for the longest time, my playstyle was centered around raiding with Kaya. And so I was still of the feeling that it was worth the Stardust investment to max defenders, but not attackers. But
right. Because you're at most, or at least 2 manning, whatever it was you were doing, right? That's the idea.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, I mean, it wasn't worth it. But the meta has almost shifted the opposite way, where the defender doesn't actually matter, because unless it's Blissey, if someone wants to take it down, it's gone.
Nick, you're very late to that realization. It's been that way for like 10 months.
I don't think 10 months quite, but
8 months.
Since
oh God, it was last summer, wasn't it?
yeah, since the gym rework.
Okay, so anyway, long story even longer. Man, I was so stressed about it. Like I dumped so much Stardust into Gengar, into
Okay, well,
Dragonite.
tell the story of how you got the pass first, because that's
Oh, how I got the pass? I that was stupid. So I dropped Kaya off at yoga so she could teach yoga on a Saturday.
This is in Edmonton, so not even your regular place.
This
of
is in
residence.
Edmonton.
Yeah.
And I'm down, I grab a coffee and I see that there's a Machamp. And at this point, I haven't been able to reliably solo a Machamp. And I'm like, I'm going to see if I can solo that Machamp down there. I walk down, I solo the Machamp, and I'm so pleased with myself. I'm walking back. And on my way to Community Day, for the Dratini Community Day, I'm going to the West Edmonton Mall so I can stay warm and catch everything.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I was operating Kaya's phone at the time to keep my writing staff appeased. Like she got a shiny, but it like ruined my life playing two games at once because I hate multitasking like that. But
Right.
I checked my phone and I was scrolling down to see my items, and then there's an X-Raid pass there, and I was like, ah, oh my god, it's happening, it's happening.
So it was the same day
for this day for so long.
Was there a skip forward in time in that story, or was it the same day?
It's the same day.
Same day.
That's crazy.
And also that was when I realized it was a Friday, and I was like, oh shit. I'm gonna have to take a day off work. And I basically, we were working, like I was up in Edmonton for work. So Monday morning I see my boss and it's like, hey, Pokemon went super well this weekend. He's like, oh good. Because I told him that I had Pokemon objectives that weekend.
Yeah.
And I was like, also I have to take a Friday off because I've got some wicked Pokemon stuff going on. I have a fixed Pokemon appointment. It's like, yeah, okay. Put in the paperwork.
That's amazing.
We're not busy right now. So it's like it's not sad that people are taking time off right now. So it's like,
right.
Cool.
You have days, you can take them. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. And so I like started shoveling Stardust into my Gengars, into my Dragonites, because I figured Dragonites will be useful in the event of a Focus Blast Mewtwo, and also they're just good generalists to have around. I poured some dust into my Scizor once I figured out the breakpoints I needed him to hit. I didn't do anything with Houndoom because I don't like them. And like I was saving rare candy to use on
I thought you liked Houndoom. Back when Gen 2 was released, you said it was like one of your favorites.
I did. I was excited about it. But in terms of my countering Mewtwo, I was like, no.
Well, it's like a Tyranitar Jr.
Yeah, and I figured I would get more use out of Tyranitar.
Yeah.
And so, like, coming up to it, I had, like, my one Tyranitar was, like, level 38.5 or something like that. And I was looking at the Mons to put stuff into, and I was like, okay, well, I have a Bite Crunch Tyranitar that's level 20. I could put that to level 25. So I have 2 level 25s because that's like the one thing better than a Tyranitar at level 40 is like a level 21 Tyranitar. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I put 1 to 25 and I was like, okay, that's it. And then as I was sitting here waiting to go, it's like, no. I got to max out my 98% Tyranitar. I got to do it now. Every crunch counts. There's no way. Anyway, so I did that. I now have 3 Gengars. I think they're all over level 37. I have 3 Dragonites. I think they're all over level 37. And 1 maxed at 15, 14, 15 Tyranitar. So I got in there. There were 3 Instinct there, and there was a communication mishap where some Mystics wanted to break into a second group. So the Mystics, there were 4 Mystics and 2 or 3 Instinct, I think. Might have been 5 Mystic and 2 of us. Anyway, So I was pretty pleased about that because I figured we could get some team bonus on it. And I got 2 damage balls, and we got, I think, 2 team balls because I had 10 balls total.
Well, you got 2 damage balls in a group of 10. You said.
Oh, that's right. It was a group of
Yeah.
10.
And
And
it was a higher number of people because you're surprised that you got 2.
that's right.
Typically, you can only really get 2 if it's like 7 or less.
Yeah, but like I looked at the Pokemon around me, and someone was using Ho-Oh, and people were using Aggron, and I was like, Jesus Christ!
Those are auto selected.
Who are these casuals that are playing this game alongside me? But like, I mean, it worked out great for me because I got the damage balls because people don't know what they're doing. I think I went through 2 Tyrannitars, and I was 2 or 3 Tyrannitars, and I was on Sizor by the time it was over, and I was shocked. But yeah, I thought I was really excited to see how big Mewtwo's catch circle was. That was great. And so the first throw I kind of whiffed on, it like there was no bonus to it, and I hit him too far to the right. And I was like, oh, he is farther away. And so I made the circle just bigger than his head, and I threw that one. Great throw, and I caught it.
Nice.
And it's like 78% IVs, but it's Mewtwo, so that's all right.
So did you sink rare candy and power-ups into it yet?
No. I tried it because it's Confusion Focus Blast. So like I tried it out on some Blissey Snorlax gyms around, and I was like, this is pretty underwhelming. So I think I want to TM it to Psychic and Psycho Cut, and then use that as a specialist attacker.
Yeah. But I mean, like, you're not going to wait for another Mewtwo to power it up. Like,
oh no. Like,
okay.
I have this Mewtwo, and my assumption before was I'm just not going to get one for like a couple years. Yeah. And so this is like, no, this is the Mewtwo I have. This is the one Mewtwo I have.
Yeah.
Like, I have a friend who I play with downtown, and we, you know, both of us being downtown players and really only having one EX gym near each other's houses, whereas other people are kind of driving around all over the city to get Mewtwo. Like, we had never done that. So it's like, I guess we're not getting Mewtwo until they start doing more gyms downtown or whatever. So he ended up getting Mewtwo before I did. And after, you know, waiting the same amount of time I did, obviously. And he's like, it's pretty bad IV, so I don't think I'm going to power it up. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, we've been waiting this long to get Mewtwo, and now you're deciding to be picky over IVs?
It's like, you realize it's a Mewtwo?
Yeah.
You know, like, it's a Mewtwo, right? Mewtwo.
But yeah, no, I'm on the same page though, Nick. Like, this is my one Mewtwo. My, in theory, could have been second, but all the more reason to power the one up, because it's like fate made this my only Mewtwo. So
yeah,
I will.
There will be more Mewtwo's. You need to realize this.
Well, but see, okay, that's another thing. I don't want another Mewtwo now.
But you will get one eventually.
Well,
it might take 6 more months, but the fact that you got 2 within 1 day of each other means that now the system probably is working properly, and you will get more.
But see, A, for the sake of people who don't have one yet, I don't want another Mewtwo.
Sure.
B,
thank you.
I want this Mewtwo to be like special and like nice. I if I get any other Mewtwo's, like, I'm not going to power any more up. So
I mean, if I get one over 95%, I might power that one up too.
Well, but you're not going to not power up this one because...
Well, no, but I actually think, like, before I power up this Mewtwo, I might power up... Well, I definitely want to power up Lugia for Machamp raids. But I could also power up Kyogre just for the specialty matchups. I also just don't like Groudon. I know objectively that it's very good, but I don't like it.
Me neither. It's very off-putting.
I don't know why. I seem to always prefer the second cover legendary. So like red, blue, I chose blue. Gold, silver, I liked silver. I liked Lugia better. Just seemed more elegant.
Right. I think it's because it's ground type. I'm not a fan of ground type.
Is the worst.
Yeah.
That's because you're Lieutenant Surge. Lieutenant Surge fears one type, and that's ground.
So I have allocated rare candy to Kyogre and Rayquaza. So
I have
they're
98%
future projects.
Rayquaza, and I'm gonna have to go chasing Dragon Tail Outrage, and I hate that because I have no charge TMs.
But see, I want to make it like a flying specialist because it gets the flying quick and charge move.
Oh yeah.
So
Guys, I've only done one Rayquaza raid, and I have
Did you get it?
Yeah.
Oh, good
I
for
did
you.
one, and I got it, and now I'm fine.
I had like Mike, your first Mewtwo experience. That was my Rayquaza yesterday. I just like whiffed on 2 balls, and like everything else was fine. But I was like, Jesus Christ! The latest I think it's the Hoenn trio. I have had the worst luck with catching.
Yeah.
All right, so Mike, you're now done playing. Nick's probably going to continue. Wait till he gets his next Mewtwo.
No, like I've got a lot of egg hatching to do.
Okay, so once this event's over,
I want to collect like good relevant breeding pairs for all the Pokemon, and like I'm really looking forward to a perfect Ditto because that's really important for breeding.
That's true.
Should breeding ever come out?
Mm.
Not that I think it will, but I've selectively cultivated Dittos that I'm keeping for breeding purposes so that I can get the good IV spread.
So one of my goals lately has been to fill my top 12 with non-defenders from the old meta. So now my 2 Snorlaxes and Chance and Blissey are my bottom 3 in my top 12. So once I get 3 attackers over the Blissey CP, then that mission will be complete. So maybe that's my next project.
Oh man, I got Zapdos too. I like Zapdos.
Yeah. So I figured by powering up a couple more legendaries, then I should be able to knock them out of the top 12. That's a plan anyway.
Okay, well, you guys are welcome to continue. I've already had to use one. I'm going to take a few extra minutes because I wanted to hear the end of your stories.
I'm sorry I took so long telling mine.
It's okay. I think I have to hang up my podcasting cap for a little while.
Well, go
carry
put on
on
your
the
daddy
show's
cap.
legacy without me, and then I'll obviously let you know how it goes.
Of course.
But this feels like the end of one era and the beginning of another, in which I'm a parent and I podcast.
Welcome to the club.
Well, not yet.
We'll try not to replace you, but we probably will.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see how the next two episodes go, and we'll let you know. We can't guarantee anything, but we'll keep you in mind for when you return.
I'll be okay with that. All right. Stopping the broadcast. Signing off for now.